I'm 25 now and I'm about to quit and go back to school. I see an ad on Facebook and it's how to build an online fitness business. So I started doing it and lo and behold, first week, 10K. Call my parents, I'm like, yo, I figured this out. Let me come home. I move home, quit all my jobs, and I sit in a hole and I make $1 million a year, just grinding. And that was the craziest year of my life. I went from 1 million to the next year we did 10. And that was just hardest thing I've ever done to this day, harder than building the companies I built. As the young kid being bullied, I think that was a lot of what drove me to be successful because it was just so painful as a child. So it was a silver lining that those 3 years of eating shit finally paid off. And I remember texting my dad, I said, Dad, I just closed a deal on my underwear in an AC on my couch. And it was just the most exhilarating feeling at the time. But there's a moment, I remember when I first made the money, it was just like this amazing feeling of, that's why I went through that. That's why it didn't work. Like, this is what was supposed to happen. And, you know, whether it was supposed to happen or not, it was kind of that silver lining, bittersweet moment that made all the effort and all the sleepless nights and all the people pointing and laughing at me, like making fun of me, worth it. And, you know, they always say like the best things in life come on the other side of hard work. And I seem to find that over and over again. And that's what makes it worth it, because if it wasn't hard, everyone could do it and then it wouldn't be worth anything.
Welcome to the show, Tanner.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for coming all the way from Miami.
Yeah, a little bit. It was 5.5 hours.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a trek, but, you know, San Diego weather, you can't beat it.
The only place that competes right now is probably Miami.
Yeah. In the winter, it's good. The summer is blazing hot, but right now it's, you know, low 70s, and that over there, that's perfect for me.
I lived there for a year. I definitely agree. The winters are fantastic.
Yeah.
Probably better than here.
Yeah, it's like I tell people 9 months of the year it's good, 3 months is terrible, but if you can get through the 3 months, you're good.
Yeah, and and what brought you to Miami originally?
Honestly, there was nothing other than I had a lease that I was about to sign on in Houston. That's where I'm originally from. And the realtor gave it to someone else. I don't even think they were supposed to. I don't even think they were allowed to. And I was like, you know, let me just go to Miami and try it out for 2 months. And then
did you just thumb suck Miami?
I just went out there, got an Airbnb, stayed for 2 months, and I've just been there for about 5 years.
It's hard. Yeah. It's a beautiful, fun place. Yeah. Especially for a young guy like you. I'm sure you're having a good time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun stuff. I mean, the restaurants, I like the restaurants, no state income tax, the weather.
What's your favorite restaurant in Miami?
Honestly, just the food. I like True Looks. I don't know if you've been there.
There was one here and it closed. True Looks was my go-to spot.
I love True Looks, and still I'm a value guy, so if it's $400 or $500, I'm like, it's gotta be really good. But True Looks, it's like
stone crab.
$200. Yeah, the stone crab, and they got really good steaks. It's a food place though, right? So a lot of people in Miami, they get caught up in, you know, the dancing and the partying type stuff. But for
most people would say Joe's though in Miami.
Really?
That's what I mean.
To be honest, I don't think I've been to that one.
Joe's stone crab. Yeah.
I don't even think I've been to that.
Oh, that's good. It's not as good as True Looks.
Yeah.
Not as good as True Looks.
So True Looks is my go-to.
True Looks is the spot. Yeah, we had one here in La Jolla, and then they closed.
That sucks. Yeah. No, I love that place. It's great. It's been great service, and I always feel like I get a lot for my money, so that's where I like to go.
Well, again, thank you for coming on. I'm excited to dive in because I think your story is so awesome for our audience and for me to learn from. You know, you definitely have more of a traditional path where you hit those early 20 struggles, and what you've been able to turn that into to today is remarkable. And so for our audience, I mean, like a lot of young men wanted to be a professional athlete, and maybe share that part of your life before we get into the gold.
Yeah, so I grew up LDS background. Mom was stay-at-home, dad was a teacher, 4 girls, 3 boys, and I was the oldest boy. So I think I would be a little strange, you could say, growing up, because I had 2 older sisters, and they put me in all these dresses and teacup parties, and you know, someone should have called Child Protective Services probably, but my dad allowed it. And then as I got through school, I realized I was a little different. I guess you could say I was a little sheltered. And so kids started making fun of me. And I remember around 12 years old having that epiphany, and it really hurt. And so I went to my parents, and I didn't tell them I wanted to beat kids up, but I was like, I'm going to go to the gym and start working out so I can kick their ass. You know, that's in my head. So they started taking me to the gym before school. I was 12 years old. My sisters would go to Bible study. They'd drop me off. So it'd be about 5:30. I'd work out for 2 hours, and then they'd take me in first period. And after about 3 months of that, what really changed my life is I didn't know this was going to happen, but I started getting respect. And it really, even to this day, it really reinforced in my head that if you work hard, good things will happen. And so I started attacking grades that way and dating and all these things. And I really started to excel specifically at football. And I was a good basketball player too, but I just knew with my height, my weight, jumping ability, I was like, okay, football is going to probably make the most sense to go the farthest. So I started going as hard as I could at football, as high as 9 hours a day. I would do a couple hours of lifting, go to school, do practice, and I'd lift after. During the summers, all I would do was train all day. In fact, I wanted to be on varsity so bad. I remember when I was 14 that I trained the whole summer just to make varsity. I was like one of 3 varsity or sophomores to make varsity. But long story short, I started doing that, and around 22, I got hurt. I got to play a little at the Division I level. I've had 4 labrum surgeries, ankle, my nose, my fingers. I mean, it's been bad. And the one thing, it did feel good. I know I put everything into it I could. I played with some first-round draft picks, and it was kind of demoralizing, but also satisfying to watch them work out and go, there is nothing else I could have done to get to that level. Like, there was nothing.
And that feeling, I think, is so important. Like, that is that's the Mamba mentality, the Kobe Bryant mindset, which if you leave it all out there and you did the absolute best you can, you
won't feel bad.
You can't feel bad.
Yeah.
You can't be upset I'm not 8 feet tall.
Yeah. And there was a guy I played with in particular. His name was Iggy Anza. His nickname was Ziggy, and he was 6'8", ran a 4'5", 280 pounds, never played college football in his life, played 6 games, went 5th pick in the draft. And I'm not saying, that's everyone's story, but it felt good to know that I did all the 2-days, all the summer workouts, all the training, hired all the coaches. I did everything I could do. And when it didn't work out, I know there's players that don't do that, and they always wonder what if, and that wasn't me. And that was a satisfying feeling, as disappointed as I was. So when that ended, my whole life kind of imploded because I've been doing football for the last 10 years, and that's my whole identity. And I think a lot of players go through a lot of depression with that because that's what they're known as. So I sat down, and I had good grades. Luckily, I had good grades, and I was an engineer, and I was almost done with my petroleum engineering degree, and I had a mentor.
Petroleum engineering?
Petroleum engineering.
Wait, Houston, okay.
Yeah, because I'm from Houston, and there would always be teachers that would, they think I'm in the wrong class because I'm an athlete, but I was like, no, like I'm supposed to be here. This is what I want to do. And I sat down with a mentor named David Fry, and he convinced me to drop out of school. And the reason he convinced me is we had a lunch, and he said, like, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to do with your life now? And I said, I don't know, but I just want to make a lot of money because I didn't grow up with a lot of money. And he said, well, why you doing engineering? I'm like, well, that's the highest 4-paying year degree. And he's like, yeah, but it's like 120 isn't going to like cut it for you, is it? And I was like, well, what else can I do? So long story short, he convinces me to drop out of school. My girlfriend at the time.
As a senior.
Yeah, pretty much a senior. My girlfriend at the time leaves me. Her mom is pissed. My family, they didn't say I couldn't do it, but you kind of knew like, what is Tanner doing? And I'm even thinking I'm psycho. I was on the call with Texas A&M, and I'm about to go back, and very hard to get in there because I transferred, and I had a 3.9. I remember wasn't the dean, but the head of the department looking at me and said, yeah, you barely got in. I'm like, kind of like, F you, man. I had a 3.9. And I told him I wasn't coming back. And I remember looking at him before I told him, I was like, should I do it? And he's like, do it. He's like, do it. So I did it, and I hung up, and I didn't go back. And so for the next year, he taught me everything he knew about ClickFunnels and automations and emails. And that's how I found out about Russell Brunson. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't making any money, though. So I finish, and I don't know this at the time, but there's a silver line that's going to, show up. But I'm now about 24, and I'm like, dude, look, I've been here a year. I haven't made any money. Like, I'm still at my parents' house, basically paying them rent. I got to get out of here. So I go off, and I start getting jobs as a server and a door-to-door salesman. I'm still not making any money. And now I'm 25.
What were you selling door-to-door?
Security alarms. In Alabama, I sold for a company named Alder. So they're a competitor with Vivint. Most people know who Vivint is. They're pretty big. And that's the worst experience of my life. Hardest thing I've ever done to this day, harder than building the companies I built. It was just so hard. And I'm 25 now, and I'm about to quit and go back to school. And I remember calling him and my dad. I'm just like, I'm killing myself. I'm working 16 hours a day. I got nothing to show for it. Girls, I'm embarrassed to take girls on dates. I'm embarrassed to talk to my friends. The family thinks I'm done. And I remember my mentor he's like, just stick with it, man. He's like, you can do this. He's like, stick with it. And if it wasn't for him, I would have quit. And I finally am just...
Well, there had to be, him telling you to stick with it there and seeing no results, there had to be something else, because I get what you're saying. Like, he may have been the voice, but a lot of people have that voice. There had to be something that was like, okay, I'm going to keep doing this for fourth year?
Yeah, I think it's funny you bring that up. I think as the young kid being bullied, I think that once I played sports, the nice thing that I saw, and it's probably good and bad, but what I saw is that, hey, if I put in the work and I get bigger, people respect me. And so then when I perform better at football or I got cuter girls, I could always be like, if they make fun of me, I'm like, yeah, but my girl's hotter than yours, right? Or I'd be like, well, I beat you on the football field. And it was kind of that mentality that actually drove me, I think, to be successful. And so every time I was about to quit, I think what stopped me was not only him, but just the fact of having to sit and think I was a loser. And it was almost crippling, where I was like, I can't quit, because if I quit, everyone's going to think I'm a loser. And I think that starts from childhood. So honestly, a lot of kids who do get bullied, it sucks, but I honestly think that was a lot of what drove me to be successful, because it was just so painful as a child. I don't know how much goes into that. I don't look too deep into that, but I think part of that probably is where that mentality comes from. So I see an ad on Facebook, and it's how to build an online fitness business. I'm like, okay, I'm going to click on it. I'm not really on social media at this point. I click on it, get on a call, and high pressure sales, super high pressure, got to pay today, can't come back. And I have no idea what's going on, even though I'm doing door-to-door sales. I'm new to this stuff. So I give them $2,000. I put $3,000 on a credit card. I didn't even have a credit card. So I'm 25, haven't even had a credit card, apply for one, put $3,000 on it. I get in there and I start watching the videos, and I'm not a very rah-rah guy, from sports. I'm just like, tell me what I need to do. So I'm getting into the videos. I'm like, I don't want to watch these. Just tell me what I need to do to win. And they said, start messaging people, get them on a call, sell it for $1,500 or more. And that was mind-blowing to me, to think someone's going to pay me $1,500. You're like, there's no way. Like, I'm a trainer right now, and people will get mad if it's $100 or $50. Like, just do it. I'm like, okay. So I started doing it, and lo and behold, first week, $10K. I call my parents. I'm like, yo, I figured this out. Let me come home. I move home, quit all my jobs, and I sit in a hole, and I make $1 million a year, just grinding like as hard as I can.
Yeah, $1,500 increments.
Yeah, and I raised the price. I went up to $3,200. That was kind of like my sweet spot, but I'm just grinding, and I'm not leaving the room. I'm talking from dawn till dusk, just grinding. And I did so well with that people from ClickFunnels started to notice. I got a ClickFunnels award. And I think what was special about it is they looked at me as like, that's the guy who doesn't do business coaching. They're like, he actually built a real business, right? And so it gave me kind of this notoriety that really helped. And so I had all these trainers start asking me for help. And, I'm a 25-year-old kid. And I had like a waiting list of maybe $250,000 just sitting there. And they're like, we'll pay you $10,000. Please help us. Please help us. So I started taking on trainers, and lo and behold, that business blew up. And that was the craziest year of my life. I went from 1 million to the next year we did 10. And that was just the wildest year of my life. Even to this day, I think that was the biggest growth I've ever had in business.
10X is a huge year.
It was huge. And then from there, we had more people outside of fitness, and that's how Elite CEOs kind of came about. And then I've been doing that, it's been only Elite CEOs like the last 4 years, business in 6 years. And that's kind of the long story short. So it was never planned. It wasn't something I thought I could do. No one in my family's ever started a business. But, once you start making money, I guess people want to kind of know the secrets or the sauce. And so I just kind of kept going down that path, and, here we are.
But the first week, you make $10,000, and you said it quickly, but I think for a lot of people, they hear that, it's like, okay, but how, right?
Sure.
Specifically, like,
sure.
You created a funnel.
Yeah. Not even. I didn't even have a funnel. So I'll walk you through it.
Yeah.
It was this simple. So I started messaging people, and I think
cold.
Cold. Or like you could start with your leads. But eventually when I ran out of my leads, I started messaging people off hashtags. So I'll walk you through both. So I first started with followers, comments, that type of stuff, right? The basics. Once I ran out of that, I started going to hashtags, and it would be anything with the word fitness, because I started in fitness. So fit mom, fit dad, fit spo, whatever. And the way I would start is, if it was a follower, it'd be very easy. I'd just say, hey, thanks for following me. What's your goal? And we get right into the conversation, book a call. I think the harder skill that I had to learn was cold. And so what I do for cold is I might reach out and say, hey, Jeff, super nice Corvette. Like, hope that's not weird to say. I just love those types of cars. Something personable. And they're almost always like, yeah, no problem. Like, I love the cards, etc. And the reason it was better than Facebook groups, because everyone knows like reaching out on Facebook groups, is no one really reaches out on these hashtags, and these hashtags will have 30 million posts. Mm-hmm. So there's no way you're messaging the same person. And I'd say, yeah, no worries. Like, what do you do for work? And you're like, oh, I do this. And then I'm working to the transition without them kind of picking it up. So I would say, and this is where door-to-door sales blessed my life, because I was so good and I didn't know it. So it was a silver lining that those 3 years of eating shit finally paid off. And I would just say, well, yeah, like, what do you do for work? And they're like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, does it keep you busy? And they're like, everyone says yes, because no one's going to say they're lazy.
Right.
And then as soon as they said that, I dropped the hook and go, got it. Does that make it hard to work out? Or something of that nature, where now it's moved into fitness without them knowing, because it sounds very conversational.
Sure.
And as I go through that, I'd be like, yeah, what's your goal? What have you tried? What are you struggling with? You ever had a coach? And then from there, I'd say, well, look, like, I don't know if you care, but I do this fitness stuff all day long. I have some suggestions for you, but I just like to ask before I start offering, like, LOL. And they're always like, yeah, totally cool. I say, cool. Instead of typing this out and, 1,200 more messages, haha, let's get on a quick call. Here's my number. What's yours? And, I would get 80% of the time they take that.
If they went that far.
Right. I'd take the call, basically just do kind of an overview, kind of the same thing. And I'd say, hey, look, like, this is great info, but I need more specifics. So let me send you a follow-up email, answer that. And then if that looks good, we'll get on another call and I'll give you like a plan. And then the email was like my application. And like in the email, I would have specific questions, 1 to 10, how important is this to you? Or the most important one was saying, I tell clients, I teach them everything they need to know for the rest of their life. So with that being said, are you willing to invest mentally, emotionally, physically? I think I have the email still on my phone. I use it. It was 2017, like September. Yep. And then they would get on the call and I start closing them. And I think, obviously, there was still stuff I had to work through and I wasn't the best, but I think door-to-door sales just prepared me for this moment. And I was like, this is so much easier because they actually want what I'm selling. When I would sell door-to-door, it was a nightmare because they hated me. And there were 25 objections. Really, in high-ticket sales, in my opinion, you got 4 objections. You got belief, you got time, you got spouse, and then you got price. And that was it. And so I just started selling those at a massive clip. And then I, kept paying coaches, learned how to do ads, scaled it with ads, kind of rinse and repeat. And I think once you figure it out, it's not that difficult. It's just figuring it out.
I'm glad you mentioned your sales experience because my background is in sales as well. And most people who have had high growth, especially in anything where there is a high ticket sale, that door-to-door, that cold calling experience where you just get either the clicks or the doors slammed in your face over and over and over again, you learn how to navigate and you also learn how to ask the right questions to take a conversation where you need it to go.
100%. I mean, it's funny. I did I don't know what yours was like, but it was 6 days a week, 12 hours a day, about probably 12 hours because it was 4 hours of driving usually. It was 2 hours out, 2 hours back, 8 hours of knocking. And I did that for about 9 months. And you do about 100 doors a day. So when I started doing the math, people were like, how are you so good at sales? I was like, well, I've hit about 30,000 doors.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that's frustrating for me is not going through that. I think the frustrating part is, some people won't push through that. So I felt like I got that close to quitting and I feel I'm a more like strong mindset person and I almost quit. So I know there's some people out there who, if they just kept going, they'd get there, but they quit too soon. And then on the other part, I think a lot of people expect to be good too quick. So if I get a brand new person now, like clients I get now, the whole reason they hire me is to help them fast track that process. But to your point, I say, but look, you may not be as good at sales as I was, or you may need more reps, but you have to be willing to take the reps, because doing door to door, when I did online, it was so much easier. I couldn't even believe how much easier it was. I remember
air conditioned.
Yeah. And I remember texting my dad. I said, Dad, I just closed a deal on my underwear in an AC on my couch. And it was just the most exhilarating feeling at the time. But yeah, I mean, it's sometimes like when I sit back and I think about it, it's a really cool moment because I went through so much. It felt like so much shit to get there. Because 3 years doesn't sound long when we're talking about it on this podcast, but when you're living it, it is a nightmare.
Especially when you're, like you just said, when you're living it, a week can feel like forever. When you can't pay bills, when you're just getting the doors and clicks slammed in your face, when you don't see an opportunity as far as, you just can't see how this is going to turn into a real opportunity. You don't even see how you're going to transition from what is happening. My very first sales job was actually in high school, Thermoview Industries. It was cold calling home improvements. And so it was like an auto dialer, so I didn't have to dial a phone. It was literally as soon as you hung up on me or told me to F myself, someone said hello. So you didn't even have time to process, but it was like, Tanner, congratulations, you were picked to have a free, to be entered to win a free home improvement. Do you want dual pane windows or do you want to replace your siding? Yeah. Or whatever it was. I don't even remember at this point. And it was like, how many times did I get told, don't bother me at home and go F yourself and click, 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 click. And it does beat you down. It does. It's repetitive. But like you just said, the reps. Because what people see today from Tanner is 30,000 doors later.
Yeah.
Right? And most people don't want to put forth the effort for the 30,000 doors.
Yeah, the only thing that kept me going, and I'm glad you mentioned it, was I was just so afraid of being a loser. And I wish I could say something else, but I think that's what they say about successful people is they have the belief they can do it. So deep down, they're like, I can do this. Like, I know there's some, like, this guy can't be better than me. I had that from sports. I never thought, oh, this guy's a better athlete than me. And then it's just number two, it's just the crippling insecurity of not being good enough. And I just was so scared of being a loser. And at 25 especially, I mean, I'm 25 and I've got nothing to show for it. And I'm like, I'm a loser. And so, but I knew that the only way to get there was to keep going. And I think a lot of people, they can't sit in that space because they want usually the confidence, but confidence comes from results, but results come from action. And so you have to literally take action while you don't feel confident, while you don't feel good, while everyone's doubting you, everyone's making fun of you. And that is really hard for a lot of people to sit in for any extended period of time. That's why the sooner they get results, the more likely it is they'll be successful, because along the way, more and more people drop off.
And the results are there, they just don't see them, right? Because it's like when you plant a seed or a plant and it sprouts and the roots go first, but you're at the surface waiting for it to break the dirt. And you don't realize, and you didn't see it at the time, that those 3 years, your roots of sales and your abilities, they were there. The foundation was there. It just hadn't sprouted through the dirt yet. And right when you were about to quit, your mentor saying, keep going, was you were about to dig it up and realize, oh my gosh, I just ripped a plant out of the ground.
It made it all worth it. Yeah, I remember when I first made the 10K in a week, and that was triple what I made at the time. I made $3,000 part-time, doing all these odd jobs, just trying to make enough. And
$3,000 a week is not bad.
No, not a week, a month.
Oh, a month.
$3,000 a month. Yeah. So it was like the server job, and then my business was generating zero. So also keep in mind, when you're doing something all the time and it's not making money, you're just thinking, why don't I just watch Netflix? I'm getting the same benefit just laying here that I am doing that. But there's a moment, I remember when I first made the money, at first I was angry because I thought, man, I was that close the whole time. If someone just told me to call them on the phone, because I was trying to sell in DMs and like links, and that doesn't work unless you have a massive following. So I was first angry, but then the second thing was just, it was just like this amazing feeling of, that's why I went through that. That's why it didn't work. Like, this is what was supposed to happen. And, whether it's supposed to happen or not, it was kind of that silver lining, bittersweet moment that made all the effort and all the sleepless nights and all the people pointing and laughing at me, like making fun of me, worth it. And they always say like the best things in life come on the other side of hard work. And I seem to find that over and over again. And that's what makes it worth it, because if it wasn't hard, everyone could do it, and then it wouldn't be worth anything.
Correct. Average would be that. Yeah. And it would require, that's the gatekeeper for success. And everyone always says, what's the secret? I get asked that too. Like, what's the secret? It's like, secret? Work hard. Yeah.
Because and like figure it out. I'm sure you just figure stuff out a lot, right?
Well, formula, right? I believe success is a formula. Yeah. And as you navigate through things, you can either pay coaches to get that, the shortcut, the elevator. You can learn through the banging on 30,000 doors, right? There's a process, but once you figure out that formula, it's like all things. How do you tie a shoe? Someone teaches you, now you know how to tie a shoe, and it's repeatable. So once you understand what success is, but one of the prerequisites for most success, and there's always an exception, but 99% of success is hard work, meaning you have to put in the effort. And the effort is that biggest gatekeeper, because that doesn't take talent. And when I was a kid, I had small dog syndrome. I was a little kid playing competitive sports. The only way to compete was to outwork everybody, right? So I was forced, if I wanted to play, I had to try harder than you, show up earlier, run faster, be the first one in line, do all the things that make it to where, like, kind of like Rudy, right?
Yeah, Rudy.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to be the Rudy. I had a little more athleticism than Rudy, but not much, right? So I had to be Rudy. And so it was that silver lining as my childhood when I used to hate it and say, it's not fair. Like, why are all my friends bigger than me? If I was that size, I'd be dominating. But silver lining is it taught me a work ethic, which now, if you don't work on that when you're young, it's hard to create that when you're older.
Yeah, it's I don't know if you'd agree with this, but a lot of my friends, I grew up in a more, I would say, well-off neighborhood, but my dad had 7 kids, and the reason we did okay is he did all these odd jobs. His salary did not pay the bills. I mean, he made more from odd jobs than he did as a teacher, but he loves teaching. And so I remember watching him work and thinking that was normal. And then as I got older, I realized the way my parents worked was not normal. Like, it was extraordinary. And a lot of my friends who grew up in better off households haven't really gone on to do much. And I think it's because they know that their parents can bail them out. My parents said, hey, if you want a scholarship, if you want to go to school, like, you got to take care of it. Like, that's your job. And
I would only say, I don't know that it's that they think their parents will bail them out. I think it's that they were never forced to work on the habits that they can lean on. So they don't know how to work hard. When they think they're working hard,
they're not.
They're not. And that's the challenge. Most people think they work hard. They don't think they're lazy.
They don't.
They don't think that, oh, because I'm out of the house, and I talk about this a lot, there's a difference between being active and being productive.
Yeah.
Right? And when you can combine those two through 30,000 doors, I can go knock on, I mean, I worked for ADP, right? My only job out of law school. And they had a big sign, 50 calls a day equals, or 50 calls a day will get you 5 appointments a week. 5 appointments a week will close you 2 deals. If you close 2 deals a week, you make President's Club.
Yeah.
It was a formula.
Yeah.
You know how many people in the office made 50 calls?
Probably not a lot.
4%, 5%. You know how many people made President's Club? 4%, 5%. Yeah. It was very simple, but they just couldn't make the 50 calls.
It's funny you said that because you don't realize how hard you can work until you actually push yourself to the limit. And it's funny because once you get there and you realize you don't die, you go, oh, like I could go even harder. And I think that's what makes exceptional athletes and business owners, because they realize there's always another level. Michael Jordan talks about it a lot in his The Last Dance. Like his mentality is very similar to the way I like to approach business. And I had a book a couple of years ago. I don't know if you went through this, but I made a book and I just wanted, it was like a bucket list. I'm like, I want to make a book, maybe we'll use it as like a lead magnet for the funnel. And, I launched it. It was fine. I mean, it's not okay. It hasn't done anything crazy. And one of my friends, Alex, you probably know who I'm talking about. He's had his books and they've crushed. And, I asked him, I said, what's the difference you think between your book and maybe my book or someone else's book? And he always has like these very short, like punctual sayings that just really hit deep. And he's like, yeah, I wrote it like 25 times, spent like 2 years on it. I was like, I wrote mine maybe a couple times and I had editors help with stuff and like, look at this. And I didn't really rewrite stuff. And it makes sense. It just makes sense. Like your level of effort is what you get. And so if you want to write, let's say a top 1% book in the world, how can you expect to do that with only a couple months and all this other stuff? And it's a reminder to me that the level from good to great is usually way higher. So an example I'll give people is if you take someone who's 300 pounds, right, and they're trying to get to 200 pounds, they could probably do 50% of what you tell them to do and they're going to get some results. But when you take an Olympic athlete who wants to go from a 10 flat to a 9.9, the level of effort they have to put in is like 10,000% more for this much more result. Mm-hmm. And that is why most people won't keep going the distance, because to go from good to great, it is not double the effort. It's 10,000 times the effort. And I think it's a good reminder, and it kind of gives me goosebumps talking about it, because there's those moments where sometimes I think you're thinking, or I have them, where I'm like, is this really worth it? Like, is this going to be something I'm going to look back and care about in the end? And sometimes like I sit there and think, that is the moment where people quit. Mm-hmm. And even when I was going through that 3 years, that was the moment. And for whatever reason, I just wouldn't let myself quit. And then it's worth it in the end. But a lot of people, I don't think they push through that.
Well, and I think what you did very well for yourself is you had your, I don't want to say enemy, but you had your opponent. And your opponent was the fact that you didn't want to be thought of as a loser. Whether that's a good reason or not, it was a great reason for you, right? That was your North Star. That was what kept you going. And people have to find that, right? You have to have that reason that says, why am I going to put up with the shit today? Why am I going to continue to do this when I'm not necessarily seeing the result? Why? And if you don't have an answer for it, it's very easy to say, I'm just going to watch Netflix and chill. Yeah. I'm just going to, you know what? I'm getting nothing doing this. I can work half as much doing this, right? Or I'm not losing weight, to your 300-pound example. I'm struggling. I'm not seeing the results. Don't even have the plan. And it's a lot harder, so I used to be a big fan of that show, Biggest Loser. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of anything where it shows people improve and progress. Like that's what I like, true stories. So I used to watch that show, Biggest Loser. And there was this one thing they did at the beginning, and for those, I don't know if it's even still on TV, but it was a bunch of overweight individuals that came to this reality show where 3 or 4 trainers would train them to lose weight, and it was a competition who lost the most weight. Well, at the end of the show, they made all of the original group put on the amount of weight they started with. So if I lost 200 pounds, I had to carry 200 pounds of weight through an obstacle course. And you're watching these people who have made incredible transitions. I mean, they've lost serious weight in, 14 weeks or however long it was. And now they're walking and trying to climb a hill and run a route or run through a course with an extra 150, 200 pounds on them. And they're like, I can't believe I walked around with this weight every single day. And that epiphany of realization where it's like, now apply that in business, apply that in anywhere, where it's like, until you learn how to shed the weight, which is you don't know the formula, you don't have the work ethic, you don't have the plan, the recipe, the group, you're not seeing any of that. Once you shed it and you realize like, oh my gosh, I can make money doing this, I can get the results I want. When you look back at the people who are stuck, it's because they're holding all that weight and they don't realize what it's like to not have it. Mm-hmm. But once you get rid of it, you can't imagine ever putting it back on again and what that must feel like. And it's such an apropos example for business, because in business, it's not as hard as we all make it out to be. The challenge is no one sticks to the plan, right? The formula. You doing what you were doing. Yeah, you had to make tweaks, you had to learn, but if you're not learning and growing, then you're not being actually productive in your hours. You're just banging on doors or you're just DMing cold, right? But you're like, no, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep the activity level high, but I'm going to get more productive and more strategic in how I do it and learn what are the little gains I'm going to make.
Yeah, and I think also to your point, some people overthink what it takes to be successful. So for example, you'll see someone who starts something and you think that, oh, they must have had a mentor who told them this or told them that. And sometimes they go, yeah, like I didn't have any help. I just figured it out. And like figuring it out means you're Googling stuff, you're reading things, you're just going wherever you have to do to get the answers to figure stuff out. And yes, coaches help. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've spent millions on coaches, but I remember when we were talking earlier, Hyros came out. And I had a conversation with the owner, and I remember asking him and saying, you know, what, like, how did you figure this stuff out? He's like, I just did. I just looked. Because sometimes you think it's this, oh, you have to have everything set and planned, and we have to have this whole game map. And sometimes it's just take the first step, and you don't even know what number 2 is going to look like, but you'll realize it when you see it. And we hear these stories, and sometimes I just think we overcomplicate, like, how much they knew or what they needed to do, and they didn't know anything. They just took action. And so taking action will trump anything, because that's going to be the ultimate learner. You will learn more through experience than you can reading anything or listening to anything or podcasting anything. And I think there's a place for those things. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are afraid to take action. And until you cannot avoid the work, right? You have to do the work. The work needs doing. And until you do it, you will get no results. So
I love that you just said that, by the way. I couldn't have said it better myself. So outside of that, what other non-negotiables are part of your success formula? Like that you would say, you know, for a new venture that you might be launching, what would be those things that you say, hey, you know, I don't know if you're a big core values guy but I know what my 5 core values are, and this is my formula. Do you have them pretty defined outside of hard work?
I would say the ones that I like, I mean, competitive greatness is one of them, but that falls into hard work. So we'll just throw it off the table.
Competitive greatness?
Competitive greatness, like, people who actually want to do a good job. There's a massive difference between getting the job done or just coasting through and then actually wanting to do a good job. And I know as a young kid, even when I was working as a chiropractic assistant, or I was a door-to-door guy, or I was a server, I was really good. Like, I just did my best because I don't know any other speed, and I just knew at some point in my life it would pay off. I just knew it. Proactivity is a big one. Like, this is one I'll talk to my team about, coming up with solutions. Not like, you're not valuable waiting for other people to tell you what to do. That is not valuable at all. It's being proactive. Like, what can you do to fix the problem? And then I'd also say, like, communication, whether you want to call it radical candor or whatever. I think people need to be more comfortable with conflict. And it doesn't have to be bad conflict, but saying something's good for the sake of avoiding conflict is not a good thing. I think the last thing that, like, I'm learning as I'm getting into my 30s is that I think a lot of your success in life is equal to the level of personal development you have. And I think I've been a great leader in certain aspects, but there's some things that I've realized that for me to get to the next level, to attract higher level talent, better people who really want to go to war with me, that there's things I need to continue to improve on in my personal development, like just how I react to certain things, what I say, how I treat other people. And it's not like I'm crazy or do stuff all the time, but I think there's moments as leaders where when something happens that we don't like, or there's a big issue or a red flag, like, how you handle those moments is actually who you are. And who you are in those moments is going to define, like, what level of talent you can attract. Because if you want to attract people who want to follow you, you have to be someone that they'd be wanting to follow. And I think there's times I've realized or looked at, like, a situation like, I didn't handle that very well. Or, man, I probably didn't need to say everything I said. Where I think that's kind of the next stage of the game for me, because once you've learned Once you got to a higher level of business, and let's say higher level, let's just say for the sake of this convo, is 10 million a year at least. There's not tons more strategy to be had per se, or tactics, excuse me. So special funnels and opt-ins and stuff. It's like you're probably doing those things. It's really more about the level of team you can acquire, because they always say my team does everything. I used to laugh at people and say, oh yeah, whatever. Sure, it's your team. But it really is, because you cannot do everything by yourself. And so it really starts becoming about the person you're going to become. And that's kind of where I'm at in my journey right now, is like becoming the type of person that will attract the level of people that will build a team that can take me the distance. Because if you can't do that, you'll just go in circles forever, and you'll think it's some new strategy or tactic, but it's really just you don't have good enough talent on your team.
It's fun hearing you say that, because that was the transition for me, that moment. And I've talked about it on my show. I talked about it many times, but when I had the realization that I can't go where I want to go alone, like I have to be able to bring world-class talent around and let them be world-class, everything changed for me. All my businesses, like I'll tell you what you rolled your eyes on. I'm only here because of the incredible team of people that I get to do business with and take on all the challenges every day. And they're better than me in 99% of what we do. Yeah. I'm laser focused at where I'm the best, and I let them be laser focused on what they're the best. And the challenge for young leaders, and you may be dealing with this or now you've figured it out, is people say you have to act a certain way. I'm never going to lower my standard to somebody. Yeah. The standard is remarkability. If you can't meet that standard, I hate to say it, I don't even want you on the team.
You got to go.
I don't want to do business with you. So is there times where I need to be better at saying, hey, good job, and realizing like not everyone's going to be at the level I want or I expect, and maybe I wasn't even at the level that I expect of others myself, right? Like there are, of course, we all have those moments. We all need to improve in our own ways. And I think your area is, I understand and resonate with those, but there is a standard you have to hold as a leader. And to attract world-class talent, you have to set that standard high to where only the best are going to want to join that team, because they have the confidence and belief that they can be that, or they have the desire to want to be that. Because a lot of people may not have the desire to want to be great. They're okay with good. And they may be tactically or operationally sound, and you may say, hey, they do a good job, but they may not want to be great. And so as I'm in my early 40s now, I'm learning how to decipher that, because you'll get a lot of people that are attracted to your business because of the successes you have and you and your leadership. It's now going to be, okay, how do we take the group that is really good and make sure that the only people who stay with us are the ones who have a desire to be great and a plan to get there. Because if you have that, your team is unstoppable.
Well, it's funny too, also just, I think sometimes we get complacent. And I'll give you an example. I had a client success director that we had, and he was great. It's like you said, he was good. Like there's nothing like super wrong he did. He was good, not like huge issues or anything, but that was it. And we recently like made a switch, and we had this new guy come in who built, multiple multi-million-dollar businesses, and you could just tell the difference too. You just tell day one he comes in, he's like, do this, get out of the way, I'm going to do this. And he just starts taking on this massive action. And it almost feels like a relief sometimes, where you go, this is what it could look like or feel like if you have a good team where you don't have to do everything. And I think sometimes as a leader, like we want to help everyone, we want to be everywhere and do everything, but ultimately you can't be. And so stuff gets missed and falls through the cracks. And that's been a good reminder for me, as well as, you can't settle, because sometimes we'll say stuff, well, I don't want to do any more interviews. I don't want to hire any more people. But it makes sense that if you're going to find an elite team, it's going to take a lot of interviews. It's going to take a lot of hiring. It's going to take a lot of training. And it's just these little reminders of always, every time I get a little bit overwhelmed or I feel like I've done enough or I deserve a break, it's always these reminders that kind of come back in full circle and remind me, it's like, hey, this is the game you want to play. And if this is the level you want to get to, you have to be willing to do what it takes. And I don't know. I don't know if you've been through that, but I think sometimes you can get in a lull in business where you've been doing it a while, you're doing okay, but you're not really maybe improving, or like stuff is stalled. And then something happens where it kind of reminds you and kind of resets your mindset on what it takes to actually win. And most people, most people are not cut out for it. Most people, I don't think they want to do it, because the level it takes to win at a high level consistently, over time, it's just very high.
Well, and I think we talk about what we're talking about, the conversation and the layer we're talking about is the great. Mm-hmm. And great is usually, let's just say it's top 10%. We'll just call it that for the sake of the conversation, which means only 1 out of 10 people can be great. Because if everyone gets to that, then it's no longer great, it's average, and now great's further pushed out, right? So we are talking about how do you grow into that top. And I think everybody should work in their own life, whatever they're doing. A stay-at-home parent, working a job for a company, being a founder, CEO, being a CFO, being a director, VP, sales rep, I don't care, marketing, client success director, whatever the title is, chef. You should want to be great at your craft. Otherwise, why are you wasting your time doing it? We live once, right? One time, as far as anyone can definitively tell me. And when I'm laying on my deathbed and I look back at my life, I want to sign my name on my life and say, like you did with sports, I don't have any regrets because I gave my best to what I gave my best to. And if I don't, I'm not going to give my best. Why am I giving anything to it? Yeah. I'm very good at not doing stuff I don't want to do. My wife will tell you. If I don't want to do something, she's like, yeah, he really just will. It's clear. He does not put anything in it. But when I want to do something, I'm willing to go the distance, whatever it is. Passion, hobby, business, friendship, family, doesn't matter.
I think something I had to sit with too is when I made my first $1 million in a month, that was a very pivotal moment for me. At least it felt that way because that was a huge goal for me. I was like, I'm going to do $1 million in a month. I remember I saw a Billie Jean ad. And that was actually where I made that decision. It was Billy was, I think it was in San Diego actually.
Mm-hmm. And he's here.
Yeah. And I remember hitting it and then just about a day later going, well, now what? Kind of the same feeling I had with football. And I think something that has been hard for me, but also freeing in a sense, is that no matter what you do, no matter what you accomplish, there will always be one person better, unless maybe Elon Musk, right? Let's just say Elon's the best. So everyone besides him has someone who's beating them. And so I think a lot of satisfaction in life doesn't come from what you actually accomplish. It's from the effort you put in, and the accomplishment really is mostly irrelevant. Meaning that, to your point, like with football, I probably had more satisfaction than some guys who went to the NFL, literally because I gave more than anybody. And I can say that knowing it. I did all the two-a-days, all the practices, all the coaches. I mean, I remember there would be coaches going, man, like, do you ever go home? Like, do you live here? And I'm just thinking, I just wanted it that bad. And so to your point, I think the goal is like working to that level. So where no matter what happens, you can look yourself in the eye and know that you did your best. And you really know if you did your best. That's the thing. Because a lot of people lie. It's like, did you really do your best? And your best is usually a lot more than a lot of people think. And so to your point, I think I agree with that. Like, if you can get to the end of your life, I don't think what you accomplish will matter that much more than the effort you put in to accomplish it.
Well, it's like all things. And I had the same experience the first time I made $1 million. I thought my whole life was going to be solved. I was going to be the happiest. And I made $1 million, and I was a day later, I was like, now what?
Yeah.
And all of the highest performers and high-level individuals I know in business and friends of mine, former athletes in business or business and parents, it is the journey. It's like if I go hike a mountain, yeah, I want to get to the top, but how much time do you spend at the top? 20 minutes? I took 8 hours to get up and down the mountain for 20 minutes at the top because the journey, and when you can fall in love with the process, the journey, the experience, and that's what you actually enjoy and love, and that's why when people say you should do what you love so you don't work another day, they don't understand what that means. It means the process is what you need to love. Find something that you love the process of, and you'll never work a day in your life because you're going to love what you're doing. It may not be the career choice at the end. Like, yeah, I'd love to play football. But truthfully, knowing, former sports agent, knowing a lot of football players, I would not love the process of being an NFL player every day. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd love the process of playing football on Sundays.
Yeah.
Unless I got destroyed. But the rest of that I wouldn't love. The film room, all the meetings, the travel, the beat up on your body, the time away from your family, the restricted life you have to live during season. That's not the life I really want, right? So that process is not what I would fall in love with, even though I would love playing the game. And so in life, you got to find, what do you love the process of so you can put all of yourself into it? When you do that, success is a byproduct. You'll attract it. It'll just fall in your lap. You'll make more money than you could ever imagine, more opportunity. You'll attract the right people at the right time. And everything is perfect because, like you said, you were doing all those 2 days. Everyone had to take notice. This kid loves what he's doing. Coaches wanted to be around you and have you on the team. Players loved you. You were infectious. Like that, unfortunately, you got injured, right? But you left it all there. And I think that for me, that's another element of success where your story is, again, it's just another example for everyone who's been watching this show. We bring on successful people every week that demonstrate when you look back at everyone's past, there's these elements and there's a commonality between all successful people across all these industries, from marketing to sports to parents to all these different other areas. And all the commonalities are starting to really take shape, right? Which is that hard work and that passion and the experience of the journey, not the destination. And how many people I can tell you, millionaires, making the money did not solve any of my problems.
I don't know how it was for you, but I remember going back to that same moment where I hit the $1 million in a month, right? And I'm in this amazing penthouse in Miami, and I just got the new SVJ, and, I'm just feeling myself, right? And I remember thinking, what's the point though? And the reason I thought that is I realized I was so insignificant, even compared to, Mark Zuckerberg and Elon. And I'm going, is there someone in the world who doesn't know who they are? And I'm sure they're out there. I mean, it's hard to picture, but I'm sure they're out there. And so I'm thinking, if they don't know who they are, then how small does that make me? And most people will never do $1 million a month.
I'll argue you didn't do it in a month because it was 30,000 doors in a month. But,
right.
But I'm with you.
Right. Yeah. But when I did my online business, right? The thought I had though was, so what's the point, right? Like if it's going to be insignificant, it's not going to matter. Nobody cares. I remember talking to someone, like I had this huge party. And I was like, yeah, my business just did $1 million in a month. That's why Tara's having the party. And they're like, oh, cool. And I was like, no, like, did you hear what I said? Like, I just did. And just seeing people not even care. And so I actually went through a whole process where I started going down this rabbit hole of, what's the meaning of life and why am I doing this? And what's the point? It was almost depressing. And I remember speaking to one of my friends, Alex, and he just said some simple things. But he said, have you ever thought that maybe you just enjoy working hard? I was like, well, okay, maybe. And he's like, does there have to be a point to the work, or can you just enjoy it? And so I think going back to your point is that I do think, to a degree, a lot of successful people, they do enjoy the drive. They do enjoy the journey. They like working hard because of how it makes them feel. And like, it's not really the success at the end, but it's the whole process of that journey. And so to your point, if you can actually enjoy the process, because most people don't. If you're just doing it for money, like once you hit the money, you'll fall off. But if you genuinely enjoy the process, you'll keep going. And that's where a lot of crazy success can be had, because it's consistency over time. Just like an NBA player, they don't get the MVP for having the best game. It's who's the most consistent over a season. So anyways, I just want to throw that point in there, that the money, once you hit the goal, if that was the driver, you won't be able to keep going because there won't be a point, because the point was hit. And for me, it took me like a little under 22 months to hit that, going as hard as I could go. And then I had to come to that realization. So I guess I didn't fall into like a deep state of depression, because you can, if that's the only point is the end goal, once you hit it, you will be depressed.
Mm-hmm. And if you can fall in love with the process, I'll say it again. I think success is formulaic. It's not a matter of if, it's a when.
Yeah.
If you love what you're doing, and I don't care if you're a teacher, a fireman, a policeman, a CEO, a coach, if you love what you're doing, you will be successful in your craft. Parent, because if you love the process, you're going to work on it every single day with all that you have. And you may not be good at it today, but you will get there. And when you become great at something, success is a byproduct. It's just how it is. Like, the most successful garbage man or woman in the world is successful. Yeah. I guarantee you, right? They just are. The top police man or woman is police chief, and they love what they're doing. They're successful. Teachers get accolades and awards, and they get to, have these students that become incredibly educated adults. So I think it's all about that. And that's why I love doing the show, because I get to bring people like you on here, and we get to kind of reverse engineer your success and really talk about things that aren't evident. Because I can hear your story, and someone listening goes, yeah, okay, so I'm going to learn digital marketing, and I'm going to learn some funnels, and I'm going to go copy what he did. And you're not going to get the results, because what you're not learning is he spent years crafting salesmanship. He spent years learning how to not be deflated because he didn't see results immediately. He learned stick-to-itiveness, right? He learned how to do the funnels and how to do the sales process and do the high-ticket offers and become a coach through the navigating of all the ways that weren't going to work. So you say in a month, and I agree with you, like, fundamentally you made $1 million in a month. I get it.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, I totally
really what people listening need to understand is, no, what you did is you spent your lifetime honing the ability to work hard, keep going, fight through it, figure it out, take immediate decisive action. And as you went through your core values, those things allowed you to now have a path to make $1 million in a 30-day period.
You're correct.
And you could duplicate that again and again and again, which is why you had multiple 8-figure companies.
And for everyone listening, the thing too is that once you hit a new threshold, there just becomes another one to hit. And so you just become the smallest fish in another big pond. And so,
which is fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and it is fun, but it's also taking you back to that is no matter how much you make, $1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, whenever you get there, just your mind always wants the next thing. And so that was interesting for me to see and go, it really should be less about which mountain you get to and just focusing on, like you said, that process of getting to the next mountain, because there's no amount of money or accolades or success that's going to last for a long period of time. It just doesn't. And that, I think that's where I got a little deflated, where it was, man, like never. But I think that's kind of the paradox of life is if you just literally do your best, which for a lot of people, it is hard. But if you just do your best, then you can't lose at life. And I think it's kind of this weird game that you can never lose at if you go in with that mindset. And I used to say that I used to say poor people go their whole lives thinking money will make them happy. And then I said, rich people go their whole lives, wondering what will, because they know money won't make them happy, right? And so I think that process is just so important. And I love that you've brought that up multiple times because it's just so true.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's my belief, it's the vine that I have seen too many times. And that's the whole thesis of the show, is why I'm so passionate about this, is because I think as I get asked all the time, like, help me be successful. How can I do it? It's like, I got to explain to you, the how is actually internal. You can change it today. Anyone can say, no longer will I not put 100% of my best effort in every single thing I do. If I'm brushing my teeth, I'm going to do it with 100% of my best effort. And I call it, one of my core values is be remarkable, right? Don't chase perfection because that's not obtainable. You'll hit perfection on the way to remarkability. So if remarkable means, did Jeff Fenster give his absolute best at whatever he's doing right now? My best might suck compared to 99% of the world. Doesn't matter, because that's where I'm at today. Mm-hmm. But if I do that every single day, it's a matter of when, not if, I'm going to catch up. And if you're that much better than me and doing the same work ethic, okay, I'm not catching you, which was Kobe Bryant's whole model, right? I'm going to outwork you and I'm better than you, so good luck. And that's okay. I'll be Pepsi, but I'm going to be successful because Pepsi's still a successful company.
Yeah.
And my goal is not to be number one because I need the accolades or the attention. My goal is to say that I did the best that Jeff could do. How can I not be happy with that? Just like you said, you could lose your football dream, but you're not sitting here saying, victim me, poor me. It's like, no, I did everything I could do. I was successful in my football career. Do I wish I didn't get injured? Who knows? Yes. But that's called life, right? That's the randomness of life. You just have to come at it. But what it did teach you is why you're sitting here today at 31 with multiple successful companies, making more money than most entrepreneurs will, and now launching this new venture that's coming, which by the time this goes live, maybe live.
I hope so, man. I mean, there's always issues you can have, but that's the goal.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
So for the audience, because I'm sure they're inspired by your story, outside of the traditional, find me on social media, but how would you want them to involve themselves in your life?
Yeah, honestly, when I'm doing podcasts, I've been in a big season of giving, meaning, I've even been inviting people over to my house for like these 2-hour one-on-one sessions where I can just like break down their business. And the reason I did that is I was going through a little bit of a season of, trying to push my brand and going, well, what can I come up with today that's going to be creative? And I think a lot of times it's just getting back to your roots and just helping people with what they want help with. So if people are trying to find me, what would be best is if they can literally just message me on Instagram, tanner.chidester. Maybe just type your name in, Jeff Fenster, and then I can send over any resources that would be helpful, whether it's like messaging or sales training or whatever, because I've just got so much skills in those things. And where most people struggle, I don't think it's the strategy or the tactic per se, it's the skills. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just don't have the skills. And so that'd probably be the best place. And I could like send some free resources over, and then whether they take it is great. But that's kind of been the nice thing about once you kind of make enough money, you don't really have to do stuff for money anymore. It can just be literally giving back as much as you can.
Which is a great place to be. And for those listening, I definitely recommend you hit him up because he has a path, he has a formula, it's clearly working, and you can also learn. And that's part of it. We all, as you've learned on the show, all successful people have coaches and mentors. And so you can take the long grind and do the 30,000 doors, or you can make a DM and hopefully shrink that down. I mean, you're still going to have to put in the work. The work isn't done for you just because you hit up Tanner, but he can help you with specifically what to follow to be successful, cut through the noise. So I want to thank you, man, for coming on today, educating our audience. It was fun to hang out.
Likewise.
When I'm in Miami, I'm gonna come over to the house.
I'll go to Joe's now since you mentioned it.
No, we're going to Trulux. We're going to Trulux because there's none here anymore. Trulux, you need to reopen in San Diego because that was my date night.
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, now whenever I travel, there's a Trulux, I hit it. Well, dude, thank you, man. This was awesome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it so much.
Hey everyone, first I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And if you guys haven't heard about my new book, Relationship Bank Account, click the link in the show notes or search the title on Amazon. This book is packed with all my secrets to success in both relationships and life. Make sure to pick up a copy, and if the book helps you on your journey, let us know by leaving a review. I appreciate all of you and can't wait to see you on the next one.